I have to say, I feel like a rock star. This is amazing.
Wow, so many wonderful humans out there.
Not so skeptical now, are we, about psychology?
Love life and enjoy every moment.
After studying medicine and completing a few years as a physician on the front line, my career took a rather unconventional path. I began to focus my efforts on workforce health and well-being, training staff across sectors, from healthcare and education to tech, corporates, construction, for example, to look after themselves using insights and learnings from 4 foundational pillars: mindfulness meditation, practical positive psychology, the world of emotional intelligence, and the underpinning science, the neuroscience behind it. Combining the science and the practice to live a happier, healthier, and more connected lifestyle. I'd like to share the words of the first person I ever helped, a junior doctor working within the NHS, the National Health Service in England. She's given me permission to share part of her story with you. So this diary entry dates back to early 2015. Saturday. I've had a temperature since Friday, a headache, feeling tired and unwell, sleeping most of the day. At the back of my mind, I'm stressed about the presentation at work. I don't feel like I'm good enough for it. Perhaps they'll think I'm a bit rubbish. Fear of failure. Fear of making a mistake. Fear of accountability and responsibility. I woke up on Sunday, early morning waking, that's a medical term, felt stressed, hot with palpitations. I went back to sleep. I've been sleeping a lot more to block out my thoughts, but my sleep is broken. I went to see my family on Sunday evening. My brother stated I'm preparing to fail and making excuses in my head. My husband also thinks I do this to fulfill a need. I agree with both of them. But I don't do this completely consciously. Fear and the feeling of not being able to cope drives this. Intellectually, I know what's the worst that can happen. And if it does, I will deal with it. But I don't believe it. Monday morning, after my husband left for work, was the worst for me. I was having images of being in a psychiatric unit, the one I had worked at previously. Images of being in a blue room with a bed and a sink. I knew I was making it worse, but I couldn't stop. My own voice was telling me to kill myself. It was strong. But I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Surely nothing is worth that. I called my husband, and he called an ambulance. I felt bad that we had called out an ambulance. Like, I didn't deserve it. But having the paramedic there was good, I think. Tuesday is a blur. I did some lawn mowing. I got obsessed with work that they won't let me back. What does this mean for my career and my reputation? I'm worried about my future. I feel like I'm destroying my life. Why can't I just get on with it like other people? I feel like a terrible person. to myself, to my family, and to my profession. I was that junior doctor. And this is my story. Safe to say, I had hit a rock bottom. I recall coming off a set of night shifts one morning. It was 8 a.m. and I drove to the local supermarket to buy some cereal before heading home. I'd just worked 12 hours through the night, caring for a child suffering from septicemia, holding the hand of an elderly grandfather who was frightened, having fallen down a flight of stairs. I ordered him a CT scan to see if he was hemorrhaging into the brain. Breaking the news to a middle-aged businessman who'd woken up with chest pain that he had just suffered a heart attack. And resuscitating a mother of 2 young children who'd been blue lighted into the department following a road traffic accident. I stood here tired and hungry, peering up at boxes of Weetabix and cornflakes, chocolate puffs and Cheerio hoops. My mind confused, plagued by indecision. It took me 20 minutes, and I left with some bread and some milk and no cereal. Some would recognize this as decision fatigue. I, at the time, didn't even know that was a thing. I was struggling with stress, anxiety, depression, and burnout. Unfortunately, mine is not an anomalous case. I was just one of the 60% of UK doctors who struggle with mental illness at some point in their careers. The rate in the general population, 28%. And the evidence shows that of all occupations and all professions worldwide, the healthcare profession consistently hovers near the top when it comes to rates of mental illness, risk of attempting or committing suicide. Going back to my story, I didn't know what to do. I'd been trained in anatomy and physiology, diagnosis and management of disease in others. I knew how to look after other people. But how do I look after myself in the process? And who do I turn to for help along the way? What I now realize is that as I was progressing through my career, externally doing quite well, by the way, ticking boxes, climbing this career pathway, internally something was shifting. My internal reserve, my battery, was progressively depleting. I was progressively becoming disconnected from my patients, my colleagues, my family and friends, and most importantly, from myself. And so here I was, sat on a park bench, off sick, or out of program, as I like to put it, because somehow I felt it made me sound like less of a loser at the time. And I now had all the time in the world to be with the one person I quite frankly unliked, wanted to unfollow and unfriend: myself. And so, as I sat here, I realized there's really no escaping. And so I took a leap of faith to befriend myself, to redirect that love, care, and attention that I had so frequently projected outwards, to redirect it in towards myself. Self-compassion, a radical idea to me at the time. Now, I wasn't exactly sure how to do this, but what I did know was that every time I needed to preserve the battery on my e-device, I would shut off some applications, right? So in order to shut down those background applications which served no purpose, why did this happen? What if I lose my job? I'm not good enough. What will other people say? I recalled some teachings and some learnings from the foothills of the Himalayas, from Dharamshala, where years prior I was out there doing some medical voluntary work and had the privilege of going to the Dalai Lama's resident temple and being introduced to mindfulness and the power of breath work. Of course, I had taken it theoretically, but now it was time to practice. And so, in that moment, I somehow managed to focus my undivided attention on each breath in each moment. Inhale, 1. Exhale, 1. Inhale, 2. Exhale, 2. Inhale, 3. Exhale, 3. In this moment, I was alive. And I was enough. Slowly but surely, through the practice and over time, that thick cloud hanging over my head had begun to lift a little. It was Viktor Frankl, psychologist and Holocaust survivor, who famously quoted that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth, our happiness, and our freedom. I had created space, and I chose to live. And I knew that if I could feel this alive again, then so could others. And so it became my purpose and my passion to help others preserve their batteries, to stay charged and to stay connected. At this point, I'd like to share a story with you, a story that was once shared by a dear friend of mine and has stayed with me ever since. It's actually illustrated by the picture up on your screens. Now, the story is termed The Cracked Pot. An elderly woman had 2 large pots, each hung on the ends of a pole, which she carried across her neck. One of the pots had a crack in it, while the other pot was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water. At the end of the long walk from the stream to the house, the cracked pot arrived only half full. This went on daily for a full 2 years, with the woman bringing home only 1.5 pots of water. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments. The cracked pot ashamed of its own imperfection, miserable that it could only do half of what it had been made to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the woman one day by the stream. I'm ashamed of myself because this crack in my sides causes water to leak out all the way back to your house. The old woman smiled. Did you notice there are flowers on your side of the path? That's because I've always known about your flaw. And so I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day while we walk back, you water them. For 2 years, I've been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate the table. Without you being just the way you are, there would not be this beauty to grace the house. Each of us has a unique flaw, but it's the cracks and flaws that we each have that make our lives together so very rewarding and interesting. To conclude, I would like to leave you with a vision, with my vision. Just imagine a world in which we could see our cracks and flaws in the same light, with that same level of love, understanding, non-judgment. Just imagine if we could all take the time to recharge, to connect with ourselves, and encouraged others to do the same. Now, it might not be mindfulness and breath work that's your thing. It might be running, playing the piano, gardening, cooking, whatever it is that makes your heart sing, do it. And if you don't know what it is, then make it a priority to find it. And please, don't wait around for the permission to do so, because my friends, what I've learned the hard way is that healthcare starts with self-care. Thank you.